Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host. And there are lots of OSR games out there that you can choose from, and everybody has their favorites. I've got a pretty good, sizable collection of OSR games at this point. And my classification for the OSR is games that bring up this certain type of nostalgia from the past, you know. And a lot of people look at OSR games in two different categories, either direct clones of classic Dungeons and Dragons or kind of a revamped redo of those rules. But there's really more to it than that. It's more of a feeling than it is the actual rules themselves. But a lot of them use those rules. So this is supposed to be a list of 5 of my favorite OSR games, but it's really a list of 10 because I got 5 honorable mentions. It was really hard to pick for this list because I love all of these games. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And there are some here in my honorable mentions that should have been on the list proper, but like I said, it was really hard to decide all this out because I like all these games. But we're going to get started with basic Dungeons and Dragons, or you could even go advanced Dungeons and Dragons here. But basic was always my favorite of the original Dungeons and Dragons, and this is pretty much what got it all started. Well, not this version of it, but the basic Dungeons and Dragons is where a lot of the OSR stuff comes from. So it's getting an honorable mention because this is my favorite version of old Dungeons and Dragons. My next honorable mention is going to be The Crimson Dragon Slayer. And this book uses a different set of rules than classic Dungeons and Dragons, but there is a newer version of this game that uses kind of a 5th edition rules, I believe. But I don't have that book yet, but I'll do a video on it as soon as I get it. But this is a really cool game. This guy put out another game called Blood Dark Thirst, which uses similar rules to it that I like even better. But Crimson Dragon Slayer is on my list here. The next one we're going to look at is Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing. This is a grim, dark game, and it uses a different set of rules than D&D, but this is a really cool game, and it does capture that old school feeling for you. And there's just a lot I can do with this game, and it's really dark and really violent. The next thing on my list is D6 Fantasy. The D6 system is a system that I count as old school, even though it's a different system. But I chose the fantasy book because most of the stuff in this list is fantasy. But the only reason I put it in an honorable mention is because it uses its own rule system apart from what we're used to seeing in OSRs. Very good game. And my last honorable mention is Beneath the Sunken Catacombs. And this is a really cool game. It pretty much mimics the whole white box experience, but it does something different. It gives you more classes, and each of the classes have options to them where you can alter the class somewhat and be something different, which is very cool. Otherwise, it functions like the old stuff that we're used to. Very good game. And here's where we're getting into our list proper. And my number 5, the bottom of the list, and just because it's at the bottom of the list doesn't mean anything. I love all of these games. But at the bottom here, we have Basic Fantasy Roleplay. This is a very good game if you're interested in old school. If you're just getting started in it, this is where you want to go. This is where you want to look. This, for a physical copy of this book, it's extremely cheap, and you can get PDFs of it for free online. So it's a very good place to start, and it's like a hybrid of your classic Dungeons & Dragons and third edition Dungeons & Dragons, but very stripped down, very simple, very easy to use, very good book. The next one on my list is Realms of Peril. And Realms of Peril is a really neat one. It uses a variation on the rules we're all used to, but it does something special with the classes. And the classes, each of the it's got more classes in it than your classic Dungeons & Dragons, but each of the classes have like 10 different aspects to them. And as you gain levels, you can gain an aspect from a different class, and you just add levels to that class to it. It's really neat. I really can't do it justice explaining it, but the game almost hypes you into multi-classing, which is cool. The next one on my list, my number 3, Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now this is a cool game. Part of character creation is called the funnel, where you create 0-level characters and watch everybody getting killed right and left, and anybody left over pretty much gets to advance to level 1, and that's where you begin your career proper. Very cool game. The next one on my list, now these last two are almost the same game, but they aren't. My number 2 is Machinations of the Space Princess. This is a science fiction OSR, and it is really cool. It's got its own classes in it, and you pretty much make up your own race, and it has rules for that, and tells you what you need to do if you're going to play a regular human. But there's a lot of neat stuff in here, and if you're into science fiction and you want that old school rule set, this is where you want to go. I like this game a lot. But the guy that wrote it got inspiration from our number 1 pick, which is Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And yes, I know this is pretty much a clone of basic Dungeons & Dragons, but it takes things to a darker place. The 1700s, or the 1600s, excuse me. And it's gorier, more adult. It feels like it's grown up into something horror-like. There are no set monsters in this game. You get to come up with them on your own. And adventures that you buy for this game give you monsters to use for those adventures. So it's very creative, very cool. This is my number 1 OSR game. And that was a look at 10 OSR games, 5 of my favorites, 5 honorable mentions that I love to play. And I would recommend any of these games, and most of them are pretty cheap for you. Some of them are a little bit pricey, but that's because they're older games and out of print. But for the most part, they're pretty easily found and obtainable. So thank you for joining me at a look at these games, and hopefully you'll join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.